There are watches that measure time, there are watches that shape history. And then there is Breguet, the maker whose name isn't just on a dial, but it's imposed deep into the story of horology itself. From the delicate symmetry of engine-turned dials to the invention of the tourbillon, Abraham-Louis Breguet's creations have lived for centuries. Today, we're exploring the art of Breguet, the classic, deeply researched book by the late George Daniels, who himself was a master watchmaker who wrote not just about Breguet's watches, but about the idea of watchmaking as a living art form. This book by George Daniels, one of the most influential watchmakers of the 20th century, the man who single-handedly revived the craft of independent horology and created one of the most respected watchmaking philosophies of the modern era. Daniels wasn't a detached historian. He studied, restored, and lived Breguet's work. He worked directly with Maison Breguet's archives after meeting George Brown in the early 1960s, gaining access to incredible original documentation of every Breguet watch and clock ever made. The result is not a dry catalog, it's a deep technical and artistic biography of one of history's greatest makers, written by a peer who fully understood both why and how Breguet worked. At over 400 pages and richly illustrated, The Art of Breguet is a complete, illustrated history of Abraham-Louis Breguet's work. Movements, cases, complication, and aesthetic evolution, organized in a way that reveals pattern in time, style, and technique. Daniels doesn't just show objects, he explains mechanisms, how and why they were designed, what problems they solved, and where they fit in the story of horology. Each drawing and photographic plate is paired with technical analysis and historical context, making this a book for both students of watchmaking and serious collectors. There is also a foreword by Emmanuel Breguet, tying the historical lineage of the brand into the narrative and signaling that this isn't outsider fandom, it is accepted scholarship. Daniel opens with the life of Abraham-Louis Breguet himself, his early training, his genius, and how he came to dominate horology in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Breguet's work wasn't just elegant, it was innovative. As Daniels writes, he seeks to supplant the mystique that has surrounded Breguet's work with a clear understanding of its function and purpose. Not just its appearance, but the logic behind every gear, every spring, and every case shape. And Daniels does this with remarkable precision. More than 100 line drawings illustrated technical progress, each accompanied by analysis of mechanism and of intent. One of the book's strengths is how it portrays Breguet, the watchmaker, not just Breguet, the name. Daniels walks the reader through Breguet's workshop methods, how parts were made and finished, what tools and measurements he used, and why they mattered, and why certain innovations were so revolutionary. This isn't surface fascination, it's a maker's perspective on another maker's life work. The book's second major arc traces the internal and external appearances of Breguet's work over time, revealing pattern in design and technical development. Daniels arranges these objects in order of manufacture, allowing readers to perceive the evolution of style within Breguet's output. How cases shapes changes, then how dials transition, how complications emerge, and how proportions shift in response to both mechanical necessity and aesthetic intent. It's essentially a design anthropology of horology, showing how a creative philosophy manifests physically across decades. What makes this book extraordinary is not just the breadth of the coverage, but Daniels' ability to make complex mechanics understandable without oversimplification. For example, Daniels explains early escapements as well as Breguet's solution to their problems, giving readers a sense not just of what Breguet did, but why it mattered. This is a crucial point. Most horological books either show the object beautifully with little explanation or delve into mechanics with no narrative context. Daniels does both. This dual approach is what makes the book enduring. It's reference and storytelling in an equal measure. Here's a subtle political dimension. Breguet didn't just make watches for craftsmen. He made watches for kings, for diplomats, and cultural influencers. People who used objects to signal authority, prestige, and to signal taste. Some of his clients were at the highest social echelons of Europe, and Daniels makes clear that part of Breguet's success was understanding how objects operate in a social world, not just in technical terms, but as tools of soft power. In that sense, the book becomes more than history. It is a study of how material culture intersects with influence. Daniels doesn't just stop at chronology. He shows how Breguet's innovations, from parachute shock protection to the tourbillon, influenced subsequent watchmaking for centuries. He also uses original archive access to provide dates of manufacture and, where possible, date of sale, transforming what could be mythologizing into documented horological history. The result is a map of influence, how one maker reshaped expectations for centuries of watchmakers to follow. This book makes a powerful implicit argument. Horology is not just mechanics, it is culture. It is a craft rooted in observation and material exploration. It is designed by people for people, and it carries psychological and aesthetic meanings well beyond accuracy. The Art of Breguet isn't just a history of a maker. It's a history of the ideas that made modern watchmaking possible. So what is then this book? It is part reference work, part creative biography, and part historical culture. But let me ask you, which Breguet innovation surprised you the most? Do you think Breguet's role in horology was more technical, or do you think it was more cultural? And which maker today carries Breguet's legacy most faithfully? I want to hear from you, so drop me a comment or send me a message and tell me which watch book you want next, because this series isn't just about summaries, it's a collector's conversation about why these objects endure. This is Watches and Politics, so please subscribe, share with a friend who always reads the micro details of a watch, and I'll see you in the next chapter.